spoons, flies, night crawlers. Three of my very favorite trout baits when I'm out trolling a lake, whether it's a lake I fished a lot or a lake that I'm fishing for the first time. Those are three baits that I can pretty much depend on to produce some fish just about anywhere that I fish. Let's talk about spoons first. You know, spoons are very versatile. They tap right in to a trout's instinctive desire to grab a smaller fish. Big fish eat smaller fish, and a spoon, it's swimming action, it looks like a small fish. The other thing I really like about spoons is there is a spoon for just about every speed range. In fact, the spoons that I sell, I've developed them to work across a range of speeds. I like to start off fairly fast with a fairly large lure. Today I'm starting off with that trigger spoon, golden red, great Sierra color, and I'm starting off ranging anywhere from 2.5 to 2.8 miles an hour. So got the breeze at my back, it's allowing me to cover a lot of water. If I want to slow down and downsize, I could jump into a trigger spoon junior. Target speed with that will be anywhere from about 1.5 to 2.2. 1.8 is a money speed for that spoon. Very deadly spoon. I can also run something with a smaller profile like a pinhead in that same speed range. You can actually run that lure faster as well. But 1.8 up to 2.2, 2.5 works very well. Very compact. I can still cover a good amount of water at that speed, but I am giving something to the trout that is gonna, trigger a reaction strike because it looks like a small fish. If we get down towards, noon or so and I lose the chop or the fish are being very finicky, I can downsize even more. I can go with a wee Dick Knight. I can go with a micro trigger. I can run that up top, right under the surface chop, no blades, no nothing. Super finesse approach, very compact lure, very unobtrusive, but it's something that the trout will find. Other thing about that small spoon is up here in the Sierras, you almost always get a bug hatch in the summer somewhere, in the late morning to early afternoon hours. A lot of times those fish will stop hitting the larger hardware and they're up near the surface looking for those bugs. If you show them that little tiny compact spoon at say 1.2 to 1.8 miles an hour, very often you can trigger some strikes that, from fish that wouldn't go after a larger offering. They wouldn't go for a Rapala or a grub or whatever. So I like spoons. They're very versatile. They come in, the entire color spectrum. You can dial the size and the speed in for any situation. They allow you to cover a lot of water, and they tap in to the trout's instinctive desire to eat a smaller fish. So spoons, very versatile baits, and one of the reasons that I very often reach for a spoon when I first hit a reservoir, whether it's French Meadows here where I've been fishing for 25 years, or a brand new reservoir that I've never fished before. A trout is a trout is a trout, and they like to eat smaller fish, and often you can get them to go after a spoon for that reason. Trolling flies. I look at trolling flies a lot like I look at spoons. It's a bait fish imitation. Trout are wired to eat smaller fish, so a trolling fly, it rings that dinner bell for them. The other thing I really like about flies is not a lot of guys are pulling them. You show a fish, a big experienced fish or a spook fish, a pressured fish, a novel presentation, and they're more apt to hit it than something that they're very experienced with, and they simply see fewer trolling flies than they see Rapalas or needlefish or Castmasters or stuff like that. The flies that I offer in the store, the flies that I have in my tackle box, I've got flies designed to hit all the different speed ranges I like to troll. I've got the metalheads and Magnum metalheads for fast trolling. Right now I have on a black and olive metalhead, and I'm going anywhere from 2.5 to 2.8. It's working just fine back there. I just need to cross paths with a fish that's active, a fish that wants to chase, and I have total confidence that, if I encounter that fish, he will be more than willing to grab that metalhead fly. As the day goes on, I might go to brighter colors, some yellow, some orange, stuff like that. I'm sure I'll run a orange fly at some point today, because you know me, if you watch the channel, you know I love orange stuff. Now when I drop down in speed, I've got my classic trolling flies. They work great anywhere from 1.5 miles an hour up to about 2.5. You can troll them faster, but that mid-level speed range, They're a little bit more compact than, say, a Magnum metalhead is. But again, a devastating bait fish imitation. Play with color, present that to the fish. You're showing them something novel, something they probably haven't seen before. And when you do that, your chances of a hookup go up exponentially. Finally, on the small side, I have my junior trolling flies. That's just like a junior trigger spoon or maybe even a micro trigger spoon. Very compact fly, something that you can slow down with, something you control anywhere from 1 to 1.8 miles an hour. Unobtrusive, small, doesn't spook the fish. Definitely something they haven't seen before. So if the bite's a little bit off, you show them that small fly, you're likely to be yelling fish on. And that's something I learned many years ago when I used to fly fish. You'd get out on the stream, maybe you'd catch a few fish, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe if the stream was open to bait fishing, guys would be out there with salmon eggs and worms and stuff. The fish would get a little spooked. What I found is if I slowed down and I downsized my fly, eventually I would start getting hit, even though the fish weren't willing to hit panther martin spinners, large streamers, woolly boogers, salmon eggs, whatever it was. If I downsized and gave the fish something very unobtrusive, something they hadn't seen before, they were more than willing to jump on that fly and give it a try. A lot of times I'd fish a hole with a small fly until the fish stopped biting on it. Then I would just change colors, stay in the same size range, and reinvigorate the bite once again. So if you're not pulling flies, you're not catching as many trout as you could be, and you're not catching as many big trout as you could be. Our big trout this year when we were guiding, 13 pounds on a little metalhead trolling fly, pink and white. Enough said. Get some flies, give them a chance to perform, thank me later, because they are trout killers. Okay, why are worms one of my top 3 trout baits? I mean, let's face it, here in the kayak, I've got tackle boxes full of plugs, flies, spoons, soft plastics, and more. Why are, night crawlers, dirty worms, in my top 3 presentations? The answer is really pretty simple. Because a worm is real meat. It doesn't matter if the trout's ever eaten a worm before. They could be a planter that were put in the lake yesterday. When they come in and they get a smell of the blood, they get a smell of the flesh, and they get a little taste of that worm. They do a little nip at it. They get that taste of blood. They get that taste of real meat. They know on an instinctive level it's a large meal, it's a nutritious meal, and it's something that they can obtain very easily. You can get that trout to come in and touch that worm, more often than not, you're going to be able to tease that fish into taking the worm deeply enough to get hooked. Sometimes they just come in and slam it, gulp it down, and you got them. Sometimes I'll troll a worm naked. When it really calls for finesse, when I'm really struggling, I'll roll a naked worm out there, and very often I'll catch fish on it. But most of the time, I'm pairing that worm with some sort of a finesse attractor. Seldom am I, pairing a worm with a big 6-inch dodger. I'm usually pairing them with a turbo flasher. That's my take on a flasher. It's a much, less intrusive flasher than your traditional metal, lake troll flashers. It puts out a high-pitched buzz. It puts out a good amount of flash. It has very little drag, and it's just not as overwhelming as your traditional lake troll. So I'll pair my worms with a turbo flasher at times. Other times I'm going to pair them with a Dodger mini willow leaf, one of my Sierra Diamondbacks, one of my Sierra Sidewinders, something small, something fairly compact. Every one of those attractors that I just mentioned puts out a different type of flash and a different type of vibration. Some days it matters a lot. Some days they want it behind a Diamondback. Other days they want that worm behind a turbo. So you got to kind of play with it. But what that attractor, acts as is just your calling card. It brings the fish in from a distance, and it allows them to see the worm, smell the worm, taste the worm, and hopefully get that worm far enough back in their mouth to get the hook. So right now, I'm running a night crawler with a turbo flasher at about 20 feet. I'll give it a half an hour or so. If that doesn't pay off, I'll start playing with some different Dodgers, maybe playing with some different depths. Of course, I'm watching the sonar, and I'm going to go back through the areas this morning where I spotted a bunch of fish that didn't go after my spoons, that didn't go after my flies. So fingers crossed, We'll see what happens here. But those are my top 3 presentations pretty much for wherever I fish. Spoons in various sizes, flies in various sizes, and night crawlers teamed with various types of finesse attractors. Usually one of those offerings, or more than one of those offerings, is going to produce fish for you throughout the day. Hey guys, if you like these type of fishing tips and you think they make you more effective on the water, hit that subscribe button and you'll always know what I'm talking about here on YouTube. And if you're interested in any of the gear I mentioned in this video, get on over to fishhuntshoot.com and check out my online store. I'm Kel Kellogg. I'll see you real soon right here on YouTube.